Today is Earth Day. At the virtual climate summit hosted by US President Joe Biden, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has announced that Canada will boost our emission reduction target under the Paris Agreement to 40 to 50% below 2005 levels by 2030. It's up from 30%. The day after the 2019 federal election, I wrote a column with the headline, "With election of the Liberal minority government, Canada officially has an Alberta problem with only one solution." That one solution is for the CEOs of the Alberta oil sands companies to commit to significantly reducing the GHG emissions of bitumen extraction and oil and gas extraction in general. So here are the numbers. The oil and gas sector in Canada is responsible for 26% of all national GHG emissions. That is the highest percentage of any other sector of the Canadian economy. The oil sands sector is responsible all by itself for 11% of national emissions. Those are huge numbers. Now, Tim McMillan, CEO of the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, was quoted recently in a New York Times article saying, "Production growth can be compatible with emissions reductions." Sorry, but no, it cannot. I'm in a unique position to make that argument. In 2019, I published a book titled "The New Alberta Advantage, Technology, Policy, and the Future of the Oil Sands," in which I argued that the oil sands companies really understood the climate crisis and were ready to significantly reduce their emissions. Well, I was wrong. The previous generation of oil sands CEOs, the ones I wrote about, they understood the twin problems of climate change and the energy transition. The current CEOs do not. Take Suncor, for example. In 2019, Canada's largest integrated oil and gas company returned more than 30% of its revenue to shareholders. Not a third of its profits, a third of all the revenue it took in. In the very next year, in 2020, it postponed a $1 billion cogeneration plant that would have reduced its oil sands emissions significantly because of the pandemic. Now, of course, Suncor had to protect the company during a serious downturn in the economy, and that was a very significant capital expenditure for it. But those two actions, I think, clearly signal the company's priorities. And the other oil sands companies are even worse. They want to decarbonize at their own pace, so it's convenient and low cost for them while generating maximum profit for shareholders. Well, achieving Canada's previous emissions targets was going to be very difficult without significant action by the oil and gas sector, especially the oil sands. As of today, it's impossible. Prime Minister Trudeau said about the new targets that Canada is a committed partner in the global fight against climate change. If that statement is even mostly true, then the status quo is over for hydrocarbons, especially the oil sands. And it should be. If the industry can't up its commitment to lowering emissions, then it must suffer the consequences. Well, what might that look like? Here are two of many options. Number one, a production cap for the oil sands, which is around about 4 million barrels a day at the moment. This is the one option that industry wishes to avoid at all costs. But perhaps it's the only option that will get the attention of the CEOs. The second option is the Alberta large emitter tax, known as TIER, which gives discounts of 80 to 90% to oil and gas producers. Phase out those discounts by 2030 so that production is exposed to the full carbon price then, not a fraction. Till now, Ottawa has used mostly carrots, trying to persuade the oil and gas sector to join the fight against climate change. The time has come for sticks. Sorry, Alberta, but you brought this on yourself.